Alderneys Key FM.
Of course, those of you that may have missed last night, the President came in, we went on air live at 8 o'clock and made a very important announcement about Guernsey. And for those of you that missed it, we are sorry, but we were inundated and we got hammered, I think is the best way to describe it. But what we've got is the President coming in today, and he's got quite a bit to cover this morning. So good morning to you, William.
Good morning to you, Dougal. Good morning, Mags.
Good morning.
Good morning to the ever-increasing number of listeners, which is very encouraging. Apologies, because it's going to be a bit clunky this morning, because I've got quite a bit to get through, but as everybody will probably now be aware, there was a significant change in policy last night. Before I go into the detail of it, I would like to make it very clear that bringing in these new regulations was not as a result of anything here. We still do not have a positive test, so the decisions that were made because of developments in Guernsey, but because this is a Bailey-wide initiative, we are also covered by the same provisions, which in fact is an advantage to us, because the circumstances which have arisen in Guernsey do not appertain here at the moment, so it actually, by bringing in these measures, strengthens our resilience and strengthens our ability to be able to control the spread of the virus if we were to get a case here. So I want to reassure everybody on the island that nothing has changed here from yesterday in terms of testing or concerns that we might have. So we're now going to be subject to the same regulations as Guernsey, and that will, as I've already said, strengthen our resilience if we have the problem to deal with in the future. Dr. Brink did stress, and I think this is important, that the approach in Guernsey is an approach which works for the bailiwick of Guernsey. It's not the same approach adopted in the UK. It's an approach which is centred around the needs of our islands. So please don't look at what's happening in the UK necessarily, because focus only on what's happening here, because this is where the strategy and the policy is being formed to protect us all. So I'm going to start, if I may, by reading something of the media release that was published at 7 o'clock last night when the press conference was taking place. I've got to say this has moved at an incredibly fast pace since 7 o'clock last night. We are running extremely fast to keep up with it, but I'll deal with that in a little bit more detail later, if I may. So I'm going to quote little bits of the media release from Guernsey, because I think that will give you a flavour of the circumstances which required this action to be taken. So it's headed, "Strict new measures come into force from midnight tonight." I'll just pause there and say this statement, together with frequently questions that people might have, are available on the GovGG website, so you can go there to read the whole of this document and also answer some of the questions that you might have. So it starts in this way. Following the advice of the Director of Public Health, Dr. Nicola Brink, the Civil Contingencies Authority has today made further emergency regulations requiring strict new measures on staying at home and away from others, which will come into force from midnight this evening. That, of course, was last night, so these provisions apply now. Dr. Brink made this evidence-based recommendation based on the number of positive cases of COVID-19 on the island, the testing protocol due to laboratory capacity in the EU, and the identification of the first case of community transmission. Now, as many of you will be aware, that we have had some delays in the test results being returned for very obvious reasons, because the testing has to be done in the UK. And that's a matter that Dr. Brink has had to take into consideration. But perhaps more significantly is the identification of the first case of community transmission, which you will probably see referred to as community seeding. This is the first occasion when the virus has been identified in a resident which cannot be traced back to a connection with somebody who has come onto the island. So that is community seeding, and that really is what has to be dealt with, and has to be dealt with in the way in which it has. So this is all a method of slowing down the spread of the virus to contain it, and we can then look at the position again in 14 days and 28 days to see whether or not it is necessary to continue with these regulations. So Dr. Brink said, the public health team, having identified a case of community seeding, together with reviewing the broader local evidence of COVID-19 cases and international developments, has decided that the most appropriate course of action is to introduce these strict measures for an initial period of 14 days. This gives us time to commission and start on-island testing, which will give us a clear idea as to the extent of on-island seeding. So the ability to be able to test in Guernsey is a massive step forward, and will give Dr. Brink and her team much more up-to-date information so that they can then consider what steps, if any, need to be taken. So she goes on to say, the single most important action we can now take as a community in fighting the coronavirus is to stay at home in order to protect our island and our medical infrastructure and save lives. Reducing our day-to-day contact with other people will reduce the spread of the infection. That is why the States of Guernsey is now introducing 3 new measures. 1. Requiring people to stay at home except for very limited purposes. 2. Closing non-essential shops and community spaces. 3. Stopping all gatherings of more than 2 people in public. Every islander must comply with these new measures. The relevant authorities, including the police, will be given the powers to enforce them, including through fines and dispersing gatherings. The statement then goes on to reiterate something that was said by Deputy Gavin Saint-Pierre. These measures introduce the most far-reaching deprivation of personal liberties since the Second World War. These are not decisions we have taken lightly. The impact of these decisions are far-reaching, but I am absolutely certain that this is the right thing to do to protect our community. Stay in regular touch by phone or video call with friends and family. We will continue to update GovGG so that you have a reliable source of facts. The decision does not change my other advice from yesterday. Don't panic. Keep calm, stay strong, and maintain good personal hygiene amongst your household. Rest assured that the whole of government is mobilised to continue to do everything we can to protect you, your families, as well as ours. We will never compromise or risk that overriding objection. And the government of Alderney feels exactly the same way and shares all those sentiments so eloquently expressed yesterday by Mr. Saint-Pierre. So full details of these strict measures are available at www.gov.gg/coronavirus. www.gov.gg/coronavirus. So that is basically a précis of what Guernsey put out last night, I'm now going to read a statement which relates to us on the island and how the impact will affect us. Last night, I announced live on Key FM that the island, along with the whole of the bailiwick, would be going into lockdown as from midnight. This means that people are now required to stay at home and only leave home for a very limited number of purposes. This action has been taken because a new positive test result has been received and there are now 23 cases in total. They are all, of course, in Guernsey. Unlike previous tests, this one is a case which is transmitted within the community. The virus is therefore no longer contained within a group of people who have returned after travelling elsewhere. This is a clear case of community transmission and our response needs to deal with this risk. We do not yet have a confirmed case in Alderney, but that doesn't mean the virus isn't here. We are waiting for test results. We just don't know. The virus spreads very easily, and we should behave as if we knew that it was definitely here. We can take advantage of the fact that we are now in lockdown because if it does turn out that the virus is already here, we will have taken action early and limited its impact. You can leave home if you need to go shopping for essential items or to collect medicine. You can leave home for up to 2 hours outdoor activity a day, provided you observe social distancing. You can leave home for a medical need if you are instructed to do so. More than 2 people may not gather together in public. In particular, I want to stress to people in Alderney that our shops can deliver to you. You do not even need to go shopping. You do not need to put yourself or others at risk. You can travel to and from work only if your work cannot be done from home and you are working in a business or occupation which is essential for the island's current needs. Other businesses must close. The private businesses which are essential to the island include businesses which ensure the supply and accessibility of foods, including grocery stores, air and sea transport, harbour relating the operation of the port and freight operators. Health and community care services such as GP surgeries, the pharmacy, the Connaught Care Home, other care services including the care of animals, Alderney Animal Welfare Services, employees and volunteers who provide services to those in need, and those responsible for management of the deceased. Those essential to law and order, such as advocates. Services which support schools, including school transport and daytime childcare. Services maintaining critical infrastructure, such as electricity, oil, post and communications. Public service broadcasters and mainstream news media. These businesses must determine which roles are essential to their ability to maintain critical services. The public services which are essential to the island, which include those staff who are essential for health and social care, education, emergency services, which is law enforcement, ambulance, fire and coast guard, law officers, states works, including waste and recycling, the harbour office and airport, regulatory roles related to financial stability and banking supervision, treasury, social security, and any public servants who are essential to support the response to the COVID-19 emergency. Schools will continue for the children whose parents work in essential services and businesses. Everyone else who is not defined as a critical worker within one of these business or service areas must stay at home during the period that these stricter measures are in place. Any students or island residents who return to the island during this period must immediately enter into mandatory self-isolation for 14 days. Anyone seeking to travel to the island must be able to demonstrate proof of residency before they travel. Everyone will be getting a newsletter through their door in the coming hours. It was written before last night's announcement. As I've already said, things are moving extremely quickly, but there is still lots of important information there, including an insert with all the phone numbers and email addresses you need for ordering essential items. For anyone who needs to consult a doctor, please telephone the Island Medical Centre first to make an appointment. Do not turn up without an appointment. The IMC is open this morning only for those who have an appointment. There will be more detailed guidance in the coming days. I am sure many people will have questions. I can only reiterate that the gov.gg website is the place to look, and if you can't find an answer, err on the side of caution. Stay at home until you can get an answer. Finally, let me repeat last night's message to everyone. Stay at home, stay in touch by phone with friends and family, keep calm. If you start to feel unwell, call the helpline. Don't panic about food or medicine. There will be enough to go around if people do not overreact. Now, just talking about food supplies briefly, there is no need to panic. Our supply chain is secure. We might have to make some sacrifices later. That will be dealt with at the time. But at the moment, there is no shortage of food, there is no shortage of medicine, and subject to following the rules on social distancing, you do not need to do anything else about your shopping. Please try and limit coming to the shops. The shops are putting in place, and the states are supporting this, deliveries which protect you and protect the people who are working in the shops, because they are the front line. So different arrangements apply now in the shops, but in an ideal world, we would have people shopping and deliveries. So don't panic, just buy what you need, because it's not going to run out next week. It's not going to run out at all. We will ensure that food supplies are available, but that only works if people recognise that they should just shop in the normal way. And I can't stress that highly enough, because you might have a cupboard full of food that somebody on the front line needs today. So think about the people who are the ones who are really going to be challenged and who are going to protect us all. We have to look after our key personnel. We have to keep them healthy. We have to keep them fit. So please think of these people when you think, well, I'm going to get an extra 2 of these and I'll stick it in the store cupboard. That's not helping anybody. So I think that's the message around food. It won't surprise any of you to know that we have had numerous phone calls and emails since last night about how this is all going to work. Now, in the press conference yesterday, Paul Whitfield, who is the chief executive of Guernsey, said, we don't have answers to all your questions yet, because there are a mass of different considerations that have to be looked at before we can actually get this into a state where there is clarity and people know where they stand. So when I've left here this morning, I shall be going up to the Island Hall, and we will be looking at how these new provisions work in Alderney. So we'll be looking at different businesses and we'll be seeing whether or not we think they fall into the category of essential, and we will get that information out into the public as quickly as possible. So I think my advice at the moment is, if you don't feel that you fall within those categories that I've read out, or you're not sure, please stay at home until such time as we can give you solid advice. So this isn't, this initiative, again, is purely for protection, but we have to make it work, and we have to make it work for Alderney. So there are a number of challenges that we face here around all this, which don't necessarily apply to Guernsey. But rest assured, we will get this in place, we will give clarity to the community, and we can all then start working from this new set of arrangements. So, where do we go from here? I think I probably mentioned everything that I need to. I mean, I understand people are asking sensible and reasonable questions to which we have to this morning come up with an answer, which we will do. So please just give us that space to be able to do that, and as I've said, we'll then be able to provide you with the clarity that you need. The States of Alderney website has links to the media statement last night made by Gavin St Pierre. We are also going to publish our own media release, which hopefully will be being done as I speak, which is essentially the information that I have given to you this morning. So I think that probably brings you up to date, other than to say, please just give us a little bit of time to get all this sorted out. So patience is a virtue. Stay at home, enjoy the things, as Gavin St Pierre said, that you never get round to doing, and then as and when we've got a clear policy, then we will come back, and hopefully by tomorrow we'll have some more clarity about all of this.
Lovely, William, thank you. And just to let you know that Key FM will be staying on air, of course, to try and keep you up to date with all the latest information as and when we get it. And some wonderful things that are coming out of all this, for instance, is that some people that did orders from shops that William mentioned before thought they might get it perhaps on Thursday or Friday. They were actually getting phone calls at 8 o'clock last night to say, your goods are outside your door. Would you like to take them out? I mean, there's people working right into the night now that are trying to make sure everybody gets anything. So I think the key word, as William has just said, is patience. And well done to everybody that is doing all of that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think people are just going to have to understand that the demand for this service is significant. So please, again, be patient. It may not be quite as quick as you would like, but it will be delivered to you. And can I put a big shout out for James Vizard and young Mick Barnes? They turned up unasked at Jean's last night and helped with the deliveries.
Yeah, thank you. And listening to William, it is a very emotional time for everybody. But what it is showing is that what a community that we have got, and that we'll always have, and that is going to be what gets us through all of this. So, William, thank you. And William will be talking again tomorrow morning at 9:15, but by phone, because I'm not letting him in anymore. Thanks
for that.
It's as simple as that. So we will be doing a phone interview, and the good thing about that, if you like, I know people want to get points across and everything, but sometimes we've only got one line down here, and we can't always control calls coming through, and it can be a bit annoying when you're trying to get a message across. But at least when we're on the phone line, nobody's going to be able to ring in. They'll still be able to text, of course, but they won't be able to ring in. So thank you very much for keeping the ship steady at this really difficult time, and the fact that we live on an island where at very short notice everybody can come together and we can get messages out to people.
Yeah, it is fantastic. Can I also say I issued a media release yesterday, which is on the website, which I would invite everybody to read.
Alderneys Key FM.